Welcome back, everybody. After a long wait, Elden Ring is finally here, and having played it for over a month now, I thought it was time to assemble a tier list of the easiest to hardest bosses. Since the game has more unique enemies than Bethesda has releases of Skyrim, we will only be going over the ones that give you a remembrance. I also will be basing the rankings off my first playthrough, which was melee based with strength weapons. If you missed any of the previous tier lists for the Souls games, I'll put them on the screen at the end of the video. Also, don't forget to comment below what your ideal order would be. I'd love to read your rankings. Starting us off at number 15. A spirit glowing in pale blue light, taking the shape of a huge deer, moving with grace, attacking ferociously, and capable of draining the life of spirits to regenerate its own health. The regal ancestor spirit is a beautiful display of Elden Ring's departure of the gritty and dark color scheme we saw with Dark Souls, creating different atmosphere, similar to something you would find in Sekiro. Though it looks majestic, it's not a hard boss fight at all. Some of the antler attacks, headbutts, and the kick are fairly easy once you see them a few times. And while flying, its aerial spew of magic doesn't seem to cover the playing field as aggressively as I thought it would. Though my level was fairly high at the time, I took it down in a single attempt on my first playthrough. Number 14. A scion of the Gold lineage who managed to insult the demigod Millenia, who defeated him in combat. Having his divine heritage removed, he turned to the terrifying art of attaching limbs of others to his body. Godric the Grafted is one of the most horrific yet uniquely crafted humanoid enemies. He uses various attacks with his golden axe and wind-based magic projectiles that turn into fire when he calls upon his grafted dragon hand. A lot of his attacks are delayed, mixing well with fast follow-ups and combos, making him seem scarier and more dynamic first time around. After spending a handful of attempts on phase 1 and 2 of Godric, I could take him down with relatively low damage and upgrades just using charged heavy attacks. Godric looks much scarier than he actually is. Number 13. In her youth, she encountered lunar magic and charmed the Academy with it, becoming its master. She led the Glintstone Knights and established the House of Caria as royalty. Lady Ronella, Queen of the Full Moon, makes Harry Potter look like a cheap magic trick you saw in your high school talent show. With spirit summons in the form of Bloodhound Fang, giants, dragons, and wolves, she ties it all together with a fireworks display of magic. I'll be honest, it was very scary matrixing my way through all the shenanigans first time killing Ronella. Though her first phase was more of a gimmick, the second one is the best mage boss I'd fought since Martyr Logarius in Bloodborne. Number 12. Son of Radon, sibling of Lunar Princess Ranni and General Radon. Praetor Reikod was a champion of the Erdtree who discovered ancient hexes in the region of Mount Gelmir, harnessing their power as new sorceries. You're gonna hate me for mentioning Harry Potter twice in this video, but damn, Reikod reminded me of the first time I saw the snake in Chamber of the Secrets. While this scaly bastard is massive and still finds a way to wield his sword, the fight can be considered a more engaging version of Storm King from Demon's Souls or Yorm the Giant from Dark Souls 3. Using the Serpent Slayer is a direct callback to the Storm Ruler weapon, and this time they made every attack viable. I have heard that you can use regular weapons to kill Reikod, but I still haven't tried it. I used a combination of the instant stunning weapon art and heavy slice attacks to kill Reikod on my first playthrough. But after realizing he can be down in a chain of staggers, just with the weapon art alone, he doesn't rank as high as I would have originally chosen. Number 11. This absolute specimen of an alien dragonfly with Willy Wonka nerd rope candy tails makes my inner Bloodborne nerd scream Orphan of Kos. Well, at least if we didn't kill him right after he was born. Seeing bosses like this in Elden Ring made me so happy first time around, as FromSoft continues to push the boundaries into the obscure and cosmic. Astel has a decent arsenal of magic attacks with a quick laser and perfumer type explosion that delay after he swipes his arms. The tail punishes at multiple ranges, and he also teleports into various places, sometimes grabbing you after appearing. Top it all off with pincers that are occasionally electrified, and you got a challenge on your hands. Astel's character model is sometimes awkward to land hits on, and while his head takes most of the damage, his body doesn't take nearly as much. I had no luck staggering him or pulling off any tricks. Number 10. The last known survivor of the war against the giants, marked with a curse from Queen Marika. He was forced to tend the flame of the giant forge for eternity. Fire Giant is arguably the most complained about boss fight I've seen in my Twitch chat. As much as there may be some people who dislike him, I thought he was pretty cool. He's a roly-poly bastard though. I definitely could go for a more stationary Fire Giant. Damn, now it kinda sounds like I hate him too. The Fire Giant's shackles need to be broken before you can deal damage to his easy to reach ankles. That is if he doesn't escape. Number 9. The son of Queen Ronella and Radon, mightiest of the demigods, with gravitational powers learned in Celia. Contrary to his praise in the game, I definitely found ways to take down Radon in less than 10 attempts before the update when he was temporarily nerfed. I was level 80 plus at the time and dealt a fair amount of damage, but nonetheless, the other fights at this point of the game gave me much more of a struggle. With spammy sword attacks, gravity magic buffs, and explosions, all tied together with a meteor that descends back to Earth in a fire explosion, Radon is one of the most unique humanoid bosses I had ever faced. The opening of the fight where he bombards you with arrows at a distance while you tried to reach him made for quite a trek through the deserted battlegrounds. Since I never used the festival summons for this fight, I won't mention how much that affects the difficulty. I just hope someone calls PETA on him because that horse is definitely a little past its prime. Number 8. His twin and self born with horns. Morgot bared the sign of an ill omen in the lands between and was banished. After returning home and claiming Landel for himself in the absence of his mother, Queen Marika, he turned to the disguise of Margot the Fell Omen to gatekeep the Tarnished warriors who seek entry into the capital. Unlike his disguised self, Morgot's true identity is much fiercer, wielding a great sword and different types of magic to zone out the player. He uses a few attacks that are callbacks from the first encounter before Stormveil Castle, but this time his combos with the sword and staff seem more endless. Between the flurry of spinning and slashing, with a surprise hammer slamming you into the ground once in a while, this took me about an hour of attempts before succeeding. This fight felt like a genuine duel for glory, and at the time of attempting was my favorite boss fight in the game by far. Number 7. A massive 4-winged black dragon that lurks the deep-root depths found at the end of Fia's questline, Lich Dragon Fortisax makes Calamite look like a bargain bin discount store toy for children. This by far is the coolest looking dragon I have seen in the Souls games, period. His ability to summon red lightning and create utter chaos upon the slightest error from the player was like watching fireworks on a national holiday as a kid. I'm deeply saddened that I found Fia's questline later than I could have due to the fact that I had a lot of damage going into this fight, and realizing how much I was carried by my post-main game character build, I think he rightfully deserves this spot on the tier list. Number 6. The first Elden Lord and the first husband of Queen Marika the Eternal. He was a mortal hero of legendary prowess, but after achieving his crowning victory, he lost the grace of the Greater Will. Exiled from the lands between and becoming the very first Tarnished, it seems that Godfrey has something in common with us, the player character. Using mighty attacks with his great axe and stomping the ground so hard it actually causes miniature earthquakes, you can sense the strength of this fabled champion. Upon entering into Phase 2, the man literally pulls a Charlie Sheen and consumes his tiger's blood, then throws down some of the dankest Tekken combos I've seen in a non-fighting game. I was sweating bullets buffing the character with Erdtree Blessing, Golden Order, sipping defense-heavy potions in the Physic Flask while this guy took off most of his clothing and started his fist-only run. What a legend. Number 5. There's not much to say about this next boss other than badass. I genuinely was shocked when I laid down at the bottom of Farum Azula, only to find the fragmented tablets of rock reconstruct themselves in an effort to turn back time and resurrect the Dragon Lord himself. Placidusax was one of the most profound dragon fights I've ever experienced in a video game, period. Especially with the use of lightning storms, teleportation, and gravitational explosions. I can't imagine what he was like in his prime when he had all of his heads and extra tail that had been removed, presumably by previous warriors. The Colosseum-like arena that you fight him in is by far one of the coolest arenas I've ever experienced. The atmosphere and sheer scale of this boss are the reasons why FromSoft are secretly wizards of the game dev world. Number 4. A demigod born of Marika. He kidnapped his half-brother Mikola while he was in his cocoon form within the Halig Tree in an attempt to gain godhood through association, but failed. Mohg, Lord of Blood, is one of the most powerful Omen, specializing in blood magic and reigning over Mohgwyn Palace. This boss is extremely memorable on my first playthrough, as I had encountered him after beating the main game. I took the fight for granted at first getting him to Phase 2, only to realize he will drain your health automatically with no escape and replenish his own. With not having the item that would help me deal with this attack, I was down on Crimson Flasks. His ability to pressure you with blood magic that literally sets the ground on fire while mixing in melee attacks, then growing wings and flying, all while shouting magical chants at you, really makes it feel like he controls the entire playing field on his terms and no one else's. Even the soundtrack is perfectly outlining how evil Mohg really is. Number 3. The being that protects the Greater Will itself. A living concept of order, bound to Queen Marika the Eternal, the Elden Beast is the truest embodiment of the Elden Ring. It's only fitting that a creature that exudes the concept of the game title has a complete BS attack, right? Let me introduce you to Elden Stars. If you haven't deleted the game, smashed your gaming system, or maybe jumped into a pit of alligators, the magic ability of Elden Beast lasts longer than it takes to grow a mustache in the 4th grade, and will chase you with precision. I was fortunate enough to have a strong array of magic defense options and just the right setup to survive a lot of the beatings I received on Elden Beast, but it was still a tough time dodging all the attacks from afar while escaping Elden Stars simultaneously. I can't imagine how hard it would be if my character wasn't focused on constant health regeneration and defense buffs. Despite its silly magic, Elden Beast is still a beautiful fight, and with a wild-looking arena and soundtrack that has angelic vocals, it's hard to hate this Dino Bird Lugia-looking thing. Number 2. Marika's half-brother, tasked with the duty of wielding and protecting the sword, which she imbued the rune of death from the Elden Ring within. Malekith the Black Blade will make you remember what Souls games are like when you are an absolute scrub. I would be shocked if anyone on their first playthrough sold this guy and didn't get a little scared on the first attempt in Phase 2. I remember thinking that the beast that Malekith disguises himself as in the first part of the fight was downright savage until he uncovered his true identity and decided to implement gymnastics, sword fighting, and magic tricks all in one epic display of ass-kicking. The Destined Death ability from his Black Blade draining your health along with lowering your max HP is the biggest debuff I've seen happen so quickly in a FromSoft game. He even uses pillars in the arena to grab onto, flying through the air, flinging magic beams, and then plunging you into the ground. This boss was brutal, and it took me the second longest in the game to complete, even with having a decent character level and preparing beforehand. It is my favorite video game boss currently, and his weapon is my favorite in the game that I had found. Number 1. Now for the hardest boss of all Remembrances. Some of you will definitely be able to guess what my top pick was right from the beginning of this video, but in case you didn't, Millenia the Severed, Blade of Miquella, was the toughest boss I came across, not only of the Remembrances, but in the entire game as well. She will let you know that she has never known defeat, but even if she couldn't, you can tell she's a filthy dex user that disgraced the giant dad meme in Dark Souls, then decided to show up with one hand once we got into Elden Ring because she got bored. She even does an edgy slow walk like Lady Maria does in Bloodborne. When she's not firing off laser beam fast attacks with her sword, or grabbing you and throwing you into the air to prepare your body as an ingredient in the skewer of tarnished players she's going to roast over the fire later, you'll still get the idea that something else is going to happen. And then it does. This lady thinks she can spam more attacks in one combo than you've done in your entire playthrough in less than 5 seconds, then makes you figure out a way to not pass out from eyeball strain. I'll be honest, it does feel amazing to figure out a way to evade the spammiest attack of all Souls history, but I found a lot of players complaining that the combo's a bit overtuned, even veteran players. Well, I didn't mind too much, having to manage to save health for the crippling second phase, all while she's adding health back to her bar with every attack landed on you is true suffering. When she goes into her rot flower and transforms, the fact she's wearing less clothing as a cheap distraction tactic won't even matter because you'll be deleted from the game before even thinking. Added Scarlet Rot effect and packaging all the attacks that made Phase 1 hard with some extras in there, I think FromSoft has hit the peak with design and performance on this one. The only thing I can even compare this to is Lawrence from Bloodborne, Demon Prince from Dark Souls 3, and Inner Ishin from the Sekiro Gauntlets of Strength. Well, that wraps up my ranking of easiest to hardest Remembrance boss fights in Elden Ring, guys. If you enjoyed, drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you're not already. If you already are subscribed, please hit the notification bell for more videos like this, and don't forget to mention what you agree or disagree with in this ranking. As always, be well, and I will see you next time.